This is my journey. Inspired one story at a time, a library of leaders was created. It began as a journey to learn. As time went on, it began to grow. All it needed was a platform, and this podcast was created to listen, to inspire, to share. I am a storyteller, and this is my journey. Welcome to another episode of Profiles in Leadership. I'm your host, Steve Anderson, and today our guest is Brigadier General Twanda E, who is a dynamic leader, speaker, executive coach, mentor, and best-selling author with a remarkable 3 decades of military service. Rising through the ranks to Brigadier General, a rare and prestigious position held by less than 1% of military personnel, Twanda has embodied resilience, excellence, and purpose in every role. Her leadership journey has been marked by a passion for empowering others, coupled with her deep understanding of organizational strategy and team dynamics. She is the founder and CEO of LT3 Leadership Solutions, a consulting firm designed to help individuals and organizations excel through leadership optimization, conflict management resolution, and innovative tech-driven strategies. A sought-after international keynote speaker, Twanda has been featured on CW, ABC, NBC, Spectrum TV, Fox 45, Fox 8, and recognized in Main Headlines News, Newswire, and Tap In Magazine, just to name a few. Twanda is also a best-selling author of Dare to Lead Differently, Chew on This, 16 Bites for Bold Leaders, and Destiny Expose, The Leading Ladies. So Twanda, or should I refer to you as General, thank you for being on the show today.
It is an honor to be with you.
Well, I'm looking forward to our discussion. So give us a little context. As we heard in the bio, you've risen to a very high level in your profession, but I think in reading some of your books and studying for this, you started with pretty meager means. So tell us, how you started, where you grew up, and kind of how you got to where you are today.
Very simple and humble story. I come from, as you shared, humble beginnings in Darlington, South Carolina. We kind of like to call it Kakalaki. And from there, we have had the opportunity to be blessed with parents, Pastor and Willie James Williamson. I'm one of 7. I'm the youngest, the baby, if you will.
Wow.
And from there, had matriculated to Claflin University, was blessed with a 4-year all-expense-paid scholarship. So understanding that, hard work is not something that I'm foreign to. And when I got into the military, I just took that same kind of mentality through that process. But what got me focused was my mom, before I went to school, wanted me to understand how to create and I guess be thankful for a good hard-earned day's work. She had me work in the fields. So I worked in the tobacco fields and the cotton fields before I went to school to understand that if I didn't do well, this was where I was going to come back to. So that hard-working mentality was bringing me very quickly.
Yeah. Now, so do you, being the youngest of 7, I would imagine that some of your tenacity and get her done attitude probably came from trying to be noticed as the youngest of 7.
Yes. Let's just say I want to be able to tell everybody else what to do as opposed to being told what to do all my life with yes.
That's great. Well, and tell us the story, because I love it, about Dr. Doris Woods and what impact she had on you. I loved reading it in the book. So tell our listeners who that woman was and what she did for you.
My Doris Woods. Dr. Woods was my nemesis, my savior, and one that was just, she was a pusher, and one that without her seeing something in me that I didn't even see in myself, and pushing me to challenge myself and get outside my comfort zone, I don't think there would have been or would be a Brigadier General Twanda E. Young. In the book I share, which you probably got a chuckle from, is my last grade. She was my English teacher. And my last grade in her class was a whopping 48 on the final English exam. So it was like, I don't think there's much in my future. But she said something and made me go into the drama class. And I'm like, going to a drama class of all things, but I had to have some electives. But I didn't know that she was over the drama class. And in that drama class is where, as I shared, I was blessed with a 4-year all expense paid scholarship to Claflin University in Orangeburg, South Carolina. And it was through doing an oratory, which I did an excerpt from Martin Luther King and Nikki Giovanni's I Was Born in the Congo. And from there, she made sure that she stayed in my life, became my guidance counselor. It was like I could never get rid of her. But I'm glad I wasn't able to, because through her leadership, through her insights and mentorship, I was able to be who I am today. So I encourage, like I said in the book, who is your Doris Woods? Because mine allowed me to be able to flourish, and forever thankful, but saddened that I never got an opportunity to go back and say personally to her, thank you.
Well, it's I've done hundreds of these interviews with leaders, and it's really impressive how many people have a Doris Woods in their life. And it just shows you what impact you can have on other people. So to pay it forward, I'm sure there's somebody that's going to tell a story about General Young, making a difference in their lives. And so it's really important to keep that in your mind and perspective, because it is impactful.
Yeah, I hope someone says some old gray-haired general helped them do something in life that was of value, and they were able to reach their goals because of some insight or mentorship, or just a kind word or encouragement that, keep the main thing, and stay focused on your goals. So yes,
Yeah, that's awesome.
always precious for me.
Now, also in the book, you kind of tell a story that at 15, you were just kind of obsessed with perfectionism, and you kind of had a hard lesson to learn that striving for perfectionism is not the way to go. So can you share that with us as well?
Well, in my career, starting off at the age of 15, I went through a traumatic experience with my dad having a stroke.
Yeah.
And from there, having to care for him, care for my nieces at the time, 5 of my nieces at the time, but helping him and helping my mom. And at that time, he couldn't speak, he couldn't walk. So I had the responsibility of helping him learn how to do all that with everything else on my shoulders. But before that, because my mom and dad are very high in the community and great pillars of the community, I always felt that I had to be perfect, that everything that I did had to be perfect, not to bring shame or slight against my family. And I took that with me through my military career, which was not a good thing to do. It ended up where I would say kind of when I became a colonel, it it really opened my eyes how I was on the wrong road and had the wrong mindset and perspective about leadership, because I pushed my people to be perfect. And we all know, at least for me, there's no one that is perfect than the Father, in my view. But I pushed them hard. I was not that empathetic leader that I talk about now and have been blessed to become. I was very, very strict. And one day it culminated, or climax, if you will, where my bosses saw the error of my ways, and I almost lost my job because I pushed my team so hard that they did not have the time to properly prepare. And the answers that we were given were not up to par and were not up to standard. And I berated them. And in that moment of berating them for their errors, my boss berated me in front of them from my lack of leadership. And that was an eye opener for me, because no one had ever stood up to me to say, you're wrong. This is not right. And if you don't get your stuff together, you're not going to be in the military, which I hung close to, as my family say, I bleed green.
Yeah.
That was just in that moment, I realized that perfection was an illusion that I had this whole time. And that continuous improvement was what I should be focusing on.
And then in that story too, to continue that, your people that you were leading were witnessing this, and they were waiting to say, "Oh my gosh, what's she going to do? What she's going to do?" And what you did caught them by surprise. But in the book, you said saved your job. So what did you say to them?
I said in that moment that, in essence, that I was wrong, and that perfection is an illusion, and that standard I was holding them to was not a standard that could ever be achieved, and that to be a leader was not to be a perfectionist, but be someone that lift others up. And I apologized, and I asked them for their forgiveness and for another opportunity to show them that I could be the leader that they thought I could be, and I wanted to show them through my actions, and that we would all focus on being continuous learners of improving ourselves, not to become perfectionists. And through that process, and it was a long process. I mean, the book gets you quick there to the point, but believe me, it was a long process to regain their trust, regain their feeling and sense that I had their best interest at heart, and that I wasn't just doing it just so that I could be elevated, but that we as a team could be elevated. And once that atmosphere was changed and the climate was ingrained in culture into the organization, we flourished. We flourished, and I became a better person, a better leader, even a better spouse and parent through that process.
Yeah.
So my mom always has taught me that you have a test to have a testimony, to be able to help someone else be able not to go down the road that you've gone through. So thus the book is me letting you peek behind the veil of my flaws, but my triumphs as well.
I think what I thought was so compelling with the story is, I understand, being a leadership coach, that that process that you just described took a long time to get the people on the bus to feel that you're for them as well as yourself and all that. And I understand that. I think what's impressive about the story is how on just at the moment that you came to such a great position of saying that you were wrong, and this is what I'm going to do, and this is what I'm, to be, because before that you weren't like that. So I was impressed that on the snap of fingers you went from the way you were to the way you are now, which is impressive. And I just wonder what do you what do you attribute that to? That I wouldn't have predicted that.
I contributed to spiritual growth
Mm-hmm.
and lessons learned. I had many other hard lessons that I had learned along the way that were interesting lessons, I would say, of being a Black female general officer that led up to that, but just being a Black female officer, that I reflected back to those moments where I understood the feeling I had in those moments when I was told, one account is, I call it my base to repel tower moment. And I was a second lieutenant actually, coming into the military. And my leader that I was told that was going to take care of me, that was going to guide me, mentor and coach and teach me, told me I had no right to serve this military, serve my nation. Whether it was because I was Black, whether it was because I was a female, whether it was because I was 5 feet, I don't know. But in that moment, that feeling of belittling, that feeling of disenfranchisement, that's what I felt in that moment when my leader called me out, that I was doing what had been done to me, to my people, by pushing them to be perfectionists. And that wasn't right. So it's kind of like the kettle calling, the pot calling the kettle black, if you will,
Yeah.
that I saw myself on the other side, staring back at myself, saying, it didn't feel good when you did it, when it was done to you, but you've been doing this to people. Whether it was my mechanism of protection because I had been done that way, but it was wrong. And I've always been brought up, when you're wrong, say you're wrong. You might have to choke on it when you say it,
Yeah.
but you gotta look yourself in the mirror. And I had that aha moment that
Yeah.
this was a moment of change, and this was a moment of either I'm going to lose my job, or I'm going to keep my job. But this, as a person of growth and of what I've been taught, this was my opportunity to come clean.
Yeah, yeah, that's an amazing story. And just for those that are watching this on video, I'm just going to hold up the book here, "Dare to Lead Differently," that describes that story and many others. Great book, by the way. I was very fun reading it. So thank you for that. Um, I think it's also interesting too. You talk about in the book, and as we've just heard you telling the stories, the art of storytelling is a real leadership trait. And do you think that's just something that you grew up with, and you just were used to that, or did you have to work at becoming a good storyteller?
I had to work at it. I am by nature an introvert, and I know that your audience may say, "Yeah, right."
Yeah.
But I really am. And by having the opportunity, as I rose in rank in the military, you're leading more people, which means in order to communicate, you got to talk or you got to write. And I found myself in front of hundreds, sometimes thousands of soldiers, talking to them about leadership, about the organization, about the vision and mission that we had, and how we as a team collectively would move this vision into reality, and that it could not be done just on my shoulders alone. I learned early that my rank was not me. I made the rank, not the rank making me. And
Hmm.
in that, in order to get people to understand that I cared genuinely. Now, many of my soldiers will tell you she was hard, but I was hard but fair. And I'm proud that they will say, yeah, she was hard, she'd work you, but she was fair and she'd take care of you and she'd cover your six. So creating that kind of ohana of culture in organizations required for me to be able to be vulnerable at times. And that means you got to tell your story. And who can best tell your story than you?
Yeah, and you were the first in your family to go to college. You become a general in the Army. Um, I'll bet your parents and your siblings are just so proud of you they could hardly stand
Maybe I need to give them a copy of this because they still treat me like just Tia. And I'm like,
it.
hey, I give you a funny story. When I first came into the military, my sister and my brother are all of my family that came into the military are enlisted and non-commissioned officers that when I went to college and said I wanted to follow after them, they pushed, no, we need an officer in the family. You're going to be an officer. And of course, being the youngest, I said, oh, okay, all right, whatever y'all say, this is what I'll do. But my first job at Fort Jackson, South Carolina, my brother came in, he was an E5, came into the office. And of course, he's an E5, I'm a lieutenant. He must salute, set that position of attention, and came in. When I walked into the office, he snapped a position of attention, and I said, at ease, and that means for him to just sit down until I called him into my office. And I took a few moments before I called him into the office because I knew he was bubbling that he had to do. And then I called him into the office. As soon as I called him into the office, he's supposed to come in front of my desk again. He's supposed to salute. It did none of that. Once my door closed, he pushed me out the way, got behind my desk, put his feet up on my desk. And I was like, Dennis, you can't do that. I'm in charge. I'm the officer. You're the enlisted. He was like, girl, you're my sister. You're my baby sister, whatever. I got on the phone. I called my mom right then and there. And I said, Mom, tell Dennis I'm in charge and he can't put his feet on my desk. And of course, we laugh about it now. She was like, Dennis, don't make your sister cry. From behind my desk and sat, and we had, of course, enjoyed each other's company. But yeah, that when I'm Tia, I don't introduce myself as Brigadier General Twanda E. Young. I'm Tia.
Yeah.
Just so happen that I am General Twanda E. Young, who is a little snot-nosed girl from Darlington, South Carolina, who just loves people.
Yeah, what a great story. Thanks for sharing that. And specific to leadership, there's a lot of things in the book that I found interesting, and I've heard this before, but I think it became something that you kind of lived your life, and when you had somebody say to you that keep the main thing. So tell us what that means to you, and how you've used that in your leadership in your career.
Well, I had the honor of working under the leadership of General Charles Lucky. He was then at that time the Army Reserve CAR, or Chief Army, over the Army Reserve fully. And he used to always say, keep the main thing the main thing. I was his G1, or for your civilian audience, is equivalent to HR. So I was the HR director, if you will, for the Army Reserve of well over 299,000 soldiers at the time. And I had many jobs, many hats that I was wearing at that time. And I would always go in his office with like a barrage of, we're doing this, we're doing that. And I was just all over the place. And he was like, hey, G1, keep the main thing the main thing. He would also say when I was going too fast, he was like, pencils down, pencils down. You focus yourself. And that's what that has allowed me to do, is to be able to focus myself on my goals. And when I focus myself on my goals, then I understand, I ask myself these 5 questions. What is the goal? Why is it the goal? How do I plan to attain the goal? What am I going to do with it once I have obtained it? And what value does that goal bring to my personal life or to the organization that I am serving in? And that just from there, as a colonel, not knowing yet that I was going to move up to the general officer status, just helped me be able to better communicate and guide and mentor people along the way, and achieve the mission and goals of our organization that I was honored to lead at that time.
And you also stated too in that section too that you're having a P3 mentality. So tell us what a P3 mentality is.
So P3 mentality is something that I coined, and
Okay.
it is really reflective of my entire career. It is where I had to be persistent in my goals. I had to persevere through challenges, be humbled in triumphs, and have patience with the process when things didn't go my way or go as planned. And that is how I led. I led with a P3 mentality of sharing with those that I served alongside, of understanding, yes, we may not have reached the goal that we were going for at this juncture, but persevere, be persistent in your efforts, making sure that strategically you have focused your efforts in the right place, that you're intentionally committed to whatever it is that we're doing, and that we're disciplined in our execution and resilient in our resolve to make sure that we are going to be successful on the other end. And if we miss the mark, which we didn't too often, but we did, when we did, it was easier to bounce back, to change azimuth, and then go in a pivot to a different direction. But the P3 mentality always was the anchor of me encouraging my team, encouraging junior officers, that you'll get it. You just gotta persevere, be persistent, and give yourself some patience with the process. Give yourself some grace with the process. We all don't know everything. That's why I always told my people I'm a general list. That's why I have a team. I have a staff who are experts in their respective areas in order to make the team itself be successful toward its mission.
I've never been in the military myself, so this is a little bit of a presumption on my part, but I'm always intrigued about someone going as far as you did in the military and becoming a general, and I would assume it's a very command and control type of approach. Yet now you're a leadership guru and you're teaching leadership, and you know that that doesn't work as well, in corporate America or in businesses, throughout the world. So I'm just wondering, I'm always curious as how do you go from more of the command and control, where you've got all the say, and now you're into a situation where it has to be more collaborative.
This is the point where I have to say I disagree that I have all the say. I have the rank, I have the authority, but it's no different than in corporate America that the CEO has the leverage of the title and the authority and hopefully the knowledge and experience necessary, but we don't have all of it. So even in the military, while I am the senior, I rely more heavily on my juniors, on my staff, to ensure that they have the proper training and development that's necessary to do their respective jobs in order for us to protect the nation. Is the same in the corporate world, is that you have to learn the art of interpersonal communication. Can I order someone to do something as long as it's not illegal, immoral, or unethical? Yes, I can. But what does that do for me as a leader? Does that make me a better leader? I will tell you no. So I learned over my 33 years, it was better to create a partnership. It was better to create a sense of belonging and inclusivity of that this is not just my idea, this is our idea and how we're going to go after it. To me, that's akin to the same thing that you do in the corporate world. In
Yes.
order to be successful, be better, have that competitive edge in the marketplace, you have to have a group of people that buy into the vision and understand the trajectory that you're trying to take the organization on. So I learned very, very swiftly to be able to use communication and just treatment of people with dignity and respect. To me,
Eh,
respect is earned, not just given. You look at the rank and you give homage to the rank, but as a person, I want it to be respected.
So you said earlier that you kind of started out one way and kind of learned and grew in a different way, and what you just described. Do you think that leadership style is unique in the military, and that's why you were able to rise to the level that you did, or do you think that military leaders understand that just like you described it?
Some do, some don't.
Mhm.
Same in the corporate world. You have those where the rank is who they are, and without the rank, they're nothing. And to me, those are not leaders that you want to be under their authority of. That's a dangerous place to be
Yeah.
because they can then use that authority not as an honor, but as a weapon. And it has been done before. And I would say the same has been done or is done in corporate America. I think by virtue of the different experiences that I had in the military, the different opportunities that I was given in the military allowed me to be able to cultivate a different leadership style that was more about being inclusive. Everyone has that same opportunity. It's a choice. I say leadership is a choice. It's whether you choose that route to go or not. And I chose to pivot that way.
Another story in the book that I thought was real interesting to me was, share with us so you were deployed,
Mhm.
and then you came home, and your daughter, Tyra, I think is her name,
Yes.
said something very unexpectedly to you. And so tell us that story, and what did you take from that, and how did you deal with that?
That was a hard pill to swallow when I came back home. I was expecting to be just flowered and with love and attention, but you have to understand the previous story that led up to that one, which was I was in command at Fort Benning, Georgia for 2 years. And in those 2 years, my husband, my hero, Tracy, took care of our daughters. When I left them, they were in the ninth, getting ready to go in the ninth and 10th grade. And we had already always promised them that once they got into high school, that no matter what happened, they would be able to do their 4 years out in that same high school because they had been moving all their lives. and we wanted them to be able to garner some relationships before going off to college. So when I went to Fort Benning, Georgia for 2 years, well, the third year, I volunteered to go to Afghanistan. But that part I didn't tell my family. So not only is mom gone for 2 years, she's now gone for 3 years consecutively. And I'm gone during some very pivotal times in their lives. You know, my husband had the 2 girls and a female dog. I mean, I always make a chuckle that a laughter about that we should have got some stock in Walmart because he went through a lot of tissue time. But when I came back home after serving my country, and I was in the kitchen with my family, and while they were happy that I was home, that I was safe, I was back, but the connectivity there was not there any longer. It was there, but it was faint because who they depended on was their dad. Who they talked to was their dad. And I felt like I was in kind of, if you remember movies where the person is standing here and then all of a sudden it's like the rest of the room is moving away from them. And that's how I felt standing at the corner in the kitchen because they were all over there laughing and talking, and I wanted to be a part of that. But Tyra shared with me when I came back, she said, Mom, you abandoned me. Let that
Hmm.
sit for a moment.
Wow. Wow.
You've gone to serve your country. You sacrifice. And your child, to make sure that your child is safe and has choice. And in her view, which I do not blame her for, she said, you abandoned me. And that in itself rocked me to my core.
I can only imagine. Wow.
It still touches my heart just to even say it. And I remember writing that chapter crying that my baby thought I abandoned her. And in her mind, I did. Years passed, but during that time, we realized, and I realized in that moment, we needed some counseling. So the family had some counseling. I had counseling with my daughters, and Tracy and I had counseling to kind of mend our relationships and better understand each other and be able to communicate with each other where it didn't feel that it was so strained. And I'm thankful and happy to say today that, you know, it is because of Tyra that I became a general officer. Because right before I applied, didn't make it the first year, and I was ready to retire as a colonel. And she wrote me a letter at the age of 17. And she said, I don't know why you didn't get it, Mom. You've done everything. I don't know why God is not giving it to you in this season. Try one more time. And I said, I don't think I can. And she said, no, don't do it for you. In our conversations after that letter, I said, I don't think I can do it again, Tyra. And she said, no, you're not doing it for you. You're doing it for us. You owe us this. We've given a lot. You owe us just one more try. And thus, you know,
Wow.
she always says, if it was not for me, Mom, you wouldn't be a general officer. So
Wow.
I
That's
better.
just amazing insight from a 17-year-old. And you know, it really touches my heart because as I mentioned earlier, I've never been in the military, but I think we all understand the risks you take, and I think we all understand the dedication you have, but maybe we don't appreciate the sacrifices you make in the family. I mean, that's a huge sacrifice, and you know, thank you for your service is something that we just say generally. I mean, I think it's heartfelt, but you know, to understand really the sacrifice you made for your family as you just described it, is incredible. It's just amazing. So thank you for telling that story, even though I probably brought up another emotional thing to talk about.
No. If it will help someone to understand, and I shared that story because I wanted aspiring leaders and whoever read it to understand that we go through trials in our relationships and our family relationships, and those who have served understand from looking from one side to the other that it's not understood often the true sacrifices that are made to serve our country, but also that there is help and that it's okay to get counseling. That's not used to be taboo, but that is something that I encourage people to do, but they won't do it unless they've seen an example of a senior leader do it. And for me to be able to share that story to help someone, then it was worth sharing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, hearing that story, I mean, do you think there's anything you could have done differently to change her opinion of that, or is it just what it is what it is?
Oh yeah, there's many things I could have done better. I
Yeah.
could have communicated, the call was literally with my husband of saying, hey, so yeah, I was coming home in June. Nah, I'll come home for about a month, and then July, I'll be leaving, going to Afghanistan for a year. That's not the way to have a conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's being more focused on my career, uh, with the shadow premise that I was doing this more so for the family. But there's that thing called our own ego and our own pride that, okay, I need to do this. My job at the time, I had sent over 40,000 people to Afghanistan. That was my job, was to get the people through, get them trained, make sure their medical and everything was straight, and then send them over. I felt, for me, I could not continue to send people to Afghanistan and not go myself and serve in that capacity. But to my family, I could have communicated why I wanted to do that better.
Yeah.
I could
Yeah.
have set them down and really paid attention more so to their feelings and desires and really fears. Of course, I'm going to war, of whether mom's going to come back, whether my wife is going to come back. I didn't take that into really perspective when I did it. And that's what I want military members to understand: communicate with your family. Because at the end of the day, when Uncle Sam says, great job, well done, you get that signs of retirement from the president, and you're now standing there after all the handshakes, it's your family that's standing by you. So they deserve more of your time and your consideration when you're making decisions that impact their lives.
Yeah, I think there's a real powerful message that you just described there too, that I've always felt that people, whether they're family members or employees, they really will, if you just explain why and you have that, real transparency of what you're going through and ask them what they think and then tell them why you're doing what you're doing. I think most people give you a lot of latitude on that. But if they don't really understand why, or they or they think something in their head that the reason why that isn't really the reason why, and they have their own narrative, I do think that that's where conflict comes. So I think it's a good lesson to say, the more we can explain why to those who we lead, I think the better off we are.
Totally agree. It will lessen conflict. Conflict is at the core is, I have a need and can it be met? And if I explain to you what that need is, and you explain whether you can or you can't, i.e., if I'm in a job and I think that I deserve to get a raise because I've been doing X, Y, and Z, and you told me as my manager that I may get one, but it never comes to fruition, sitting me down and explaining that you're grateful for what I do, but I can't give you that raise I want to give you because the company is not doing as well as we expected, can lessen that conflict and that consternation of feeling toward your leaders because you think they don't care. And
Yeah.
many times we push off communication. Well, they understand. No, they don't. Everybody has their own idea, but at the core of it is that they have a need to understand why you're not holding your part of the bar of what you said you were going to do. And to me, communication builds trust, right?
Right.
I
Right.
don't have to agree with you. I don't agree with Tracy half the time.
Yeah.
But we've been married for 33 years, thank God. And we
That's
learned
good.
to communicate
Yeah.
our differences and our desires.
No, it's very true. I just think, and you talk about principles of leadership, and you have like the 12 of them listed here. At the top is, honesty is king, and step into their shoes. Those same principles can be looked at in the story you just told. And when we lead others, that it's, you have to be honest, and you have to look at it from their perspective, because it could be a different perspective. You have to be willing to see it from that side of the fence.
For sure. I totally agree that when we can communicate the where we're coming from and why it is that we've made the decision, because I made many decisions that my people didn't agree with. But in explaining to them, I'm making this decision, I understand your perspective, but I'm making this decision because I'm seeing strategically 2 or 3 steps beyond where we currently are. And because I understand the environment of where we're going, this is why we're pivoting this way. And if you trust me, if you go along with me, I'll continue to communicate with you why I'm doing what I'm doing. I just need you to play your part and do your part and be efficient in your respective areas, and we'll be successful on the other end. But there were times, first in my career, I didn't explain anything to you. It was, I said, do it, so do it.
Yeah.
Don't ask me any additional questions. Didn't work well for me. Quickly realized that I needed to change my mode of how I was communicating and leading. And when I began to learn and experience that the more I communicated, the more I talked, the more I allowed people to share their thoughts, the better off we were as we move forward toward our goals as
Yeah.
an
Yeah.
organization.
Yeah, absolutely. I think those are all great points. I also love the term that you do use that is that teamwork makes the dream work. So that's well said. Obviously, you need a team to do it. You can't do it by yourself. And then, as you said, it's a process of building trust, because then when you do say, I need you just to trust me on this. Even though I know you don't agree, I need you to trust me. You can't ask that unless you've built that up through a process.
You have to. I remember being in Afghanistan, and I share in the book where I took my team leading in the States and then going overseas and using that same kind of process, not understanding that I had a more diverse team because I had members from other countries. Some that were used to being led by females, some not. Some that were used to taking orders from the I would say I was kind of I was very I wouldn't say dogmatic in the way that I led. That definitely was not how I was, but I was very stern in how I led and very precise in what I expected. Again, that perfection would creep in every now and then of what I looked for. And I remember being in Afghanistan with this diverse team, trying to lead the way I led when I was in the States, and quickly realized that wasn't working. Some of those things worked, but that I needed to grow as a leader, to expand myself of learning about my team members and learning about their cultures, to then be able to bring the team together as one. And that's why I say teamwork makes the dream work, because once I figured it out and figured out treating each individual as an individual and then collectively as a team using their gifts and talents to make us stronger, then I was able to sleep better at night.
Yeah. So do you think early in your career, when you said that you were, a different leader than you are now, do you think being a woman in the military that you were kind of, you thought that you had to be stricter, you had to be sterner in your leadership style to make it through?
Most assuredly for me.
Yeah.
Yes. I think it was, from my perspective, it was because I was small in stature. So the optics were that, this young whippersnapper doesn't know, still got milk behind her ears. She didn't know anything. And then being a woman of color, I took all of that on. Some of it was pushed at me, but there was some that Tia brought to the table with herself of insecurities as well that I felt I had to
Yeah.
prove myself. And when I grew to understand that that was not the case, that I knew my craft, that I could lead and did lead well, that I took care of my people, and when I had that kind of equation put together and got the end result of, at the end, I had a formidable team that was we're a family. They respected me, I respected them. They trusted me, I trusted them. I had a soldier that, as I started off with, we were just at odds, but at the end, by the time that I ended that tour, as he told me, he said, "Ma'am, I chew glass for you." Now,
Wow.
that's saying something. I said, "Well, don't do that." But
Yeah, don't do that.
but that process that you
Yeah.
talked about
Mm.
was, it took work. It's
Yeah.
like a marriage. It takes work day in, day out to build that trust and that respect, that your organization begins to work like a well-oiled machine. I always akin it to, I used to tell my people, I said, look, we are one big Ohana. We're like the kids on the playground. You can talk about anything else, but you better not talk about my mama. That's how we are about our unit. That's how we about our people, and that's how I was about my people. You can talk about anything else, but when you started messing with my people, now Mama Bear comes out. I want to know why. Not that I was never that leader or that parent that says my child would not. I would say, why would they do this? Because that's not of their character.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, that's really interesting. We talked about in the intro how rare it is for a service member to become a general in the service. How I would assume it's even more rare to be a woman in that position. So, do you see that changing in the military? Do you feel like you were a pioneer? Do you feel like you were leading the way? Um, tell me about the way that you saw it then and you look at it now. Is it changing?
I think it is changing, and not fast enough, and not enough. Of course, I think there are many more great leaders that are female that should have the honor to lead at this level. I will give you the example. I graduated from Claflin University, as I shared, but I got commissioned through the cross enrollment program from South Carolina State University, which is known as the South Citadel, if you will, because it has produced well over 23 general officers. Of those 23 general officers, I was the only one.
Mm. Yeah. Well,
23,
yeah.
and I was the only one. Now I'm thankful I'm no longer alone. We do have another general officer that has just been pinned not too long ago. That is a female. But look at that. I graduated in the 80s. We're just now getting a second female that is a general officer of 23 males. So while we're making progress, this is that patience with the process I talked about. That
Hmm.
that in that realm as well as in the military. When I came in and got pinned as a general officer, I was the only African American general officer in the Army Reserve at that time of 299,000 soldiers. That's huge.
That is really huge. Yeah, it's just
That is,
unbelievable.
and it's sad that that was the case. You know, we all love being first, but we don't want to be the only. And that's what I'm glad to see, that many of the people that I have served alongside, have worked with me, worked under my leadership, are now general officers that are females. And I salute them. That I'm so
Yeah.
proud that they kept that P3 mentality of perseverance and persistence and patience with the process. And now they're showing of what can be. So yes, we've done well, but we can always do better.
So you have this storied career. I'm just curious now that you're retired, do you identify more or do you feel more like um, General Young, or do you feel and identify more with Tia at this point?
I've always been Tia.
Hmm.
Young has always just been a blessing that gave me the accessibility for others to have access, for me to use my influence to help. But I've never lost the sight that I'm Tia. I'm Tia, the goofy one that loves thrifting. I'm Tia, the goofy one that loves songwriting. I love theater. I love acting in plays. Um, that's who Tia is, who just happens to be a general officer with the honor to serve her nation for 33 years.
Yeah,
So, yeah,
that's great. You know, and these principles of leadership, another one that I think is interesting is you also say, celebrate every win, big and small. Tell me about your philosophy behind that.
I think it's important to celebrate every win because your small wins add up to your big wins. And as I share in my executive coaching that I do, I always challenge my clients to go to sleep. Well, we always open up the session first. What's your wins? What did we win this week? What happened from the time I saw you to today? And that begins to show you that you're making progress, that things are going in the direction, you're going toward the goal that you're setting. Now, you may not get there as fast as you want, and sometimes that's a good thing because you want to be able to understand and grow and experience throughout that time to once you get to the goal. But I challenge everyone of what I have learned to do is at night, I count at least 3 wins that I had for today. This will be a win for me that I got the opportunity to sit and chat and share a little bit of my story with you that will be shared with the masses and hopefully inspire someone and encourage someone to be a better leader. So counting those wins just helps me to go to sleep on positivity and wake up with something positive in my mind.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it's just study after study after study shows that, we tend to focus on the negative, we tend to focus on what went wrong and what didn't go right and whatever. And so if you can just change that mindset to think, what are your wins today, this week, this month, this year, I do think that that brings a different perspective. And as you say, that's that we can sleep well at night. We lead better when we get good sleep, right?
Yeah, most assuredly. If you take the alphabet from A to Z, and you look at and you put a number from 1 to 26 up under the alphabet, and you spell out leadership, it doesn't give you 100%. You spell out passion, it doesn't give you 100%. But when you spell out the word attitude, you get 100%. So if you were to call my phone today, you will hear, I will tell you, your attitude determines your altitude. Go forth and take the day because it is your attitude that helps change your perspective that then feeds into changing your mindset. And when your mindset changes, then you can get yourself on the right trajectory to be successful.
Yeah, that's awesome. So tell us a little bit about what you're doing now. You said you're an executive coach. You have your own company. So just give us a little summary of what you're doing now with all this leadership experience that you bring to the table.
Well, one, I'm enjoying life. I got more time on my hands now that I'm not in the military for sure. And I got an opportunity to start LT3 Leadership Solutions. And the essence of it is really to make better leaders for our society. And I do that through coaching, mentoring, and executive coaching, speaking, doing podcasts, sharing information about my experiences, letting people live through my experiences to see that things can be better, but it takes work. So I go out and do training, executive coaching, speaking. I'm a John Maxwell leadership coach, DISC certified trainer, and I use all of that to help empower other people and help organizations be more competitive in the marketplace through learning how to lead better, lead from the front, lead by example. And in doing that, building trust and building team synergy that will empower them to do well in their respective places.
Yeah,
And I'm just having fun. I am enjoying having the opportunity to use when I was in the military. My thought and desire was that if I was blessed to make general officer, I wanted to be accessible. I wanted privates. I wanted junior officers and civilians to be able to have access to senior leadership where I did not sometimes early on in my career. And because I didn't, I had to learn some hard lessons. So to be able to share my experiences and to be able to share the knowledge that I've gained to help encourage someone, empower them, enlighten them, put a fire in their belly or put a fire on their butt to do something differently, to lead differently, then that to me, I that's a win, and I'm still doing what I've been purposed to do.
So Tia, in anticipation of our discussion today, is there anything that I haven't asked you or we haven't brought up that you want to be sure and get in the show today?
The main thing that I would like to say to your audience, but specifically to your women, is that I encourage you to go after your goals. Don't let anyone or anything stop you. Be strategically focused, be intentionally committed, and be disciplined in your execution and decisive when you're going after your goals. And I wish you the best of being the best person, the best leader that you can be, not for yourselves, but for those that you get the honor to lead. And if you need help, give me a call.
Yeah. So at this point in the interview, I always ask my guests the same common question. And you may have kind of answered it already, but I'm going to ask it anyway. So, in relation to leadership, what is a pearl of wisdom that you could leave us with today?
Be you. Your people want to see you. They understand that you are in the position of leadership, but don't allow that position of leadership to become who you are. You make the position, not the position making you.
Yeah, well said. Well, this has been a real pleasure talking with you today. I think your life experience and your stories can teach us all lessons. And wow, what an accomplishment! It's just you've really done some amazing things, and the world is blessed that you're able to share those experiences with others and create new leaders and help other leaders become better leaders. So, appreciate all you do. This has been a great discussion, and I look forward to seeing what you do next.
Well, I thank you for the opportunity to share and look forward to showing you what I do next that hopefully will continue to impact and add value to others' lives. So thank you again for the opportunity.
Okay, well, take care. Good luck with what all you're doing, and hopefully we can run into each other down the road someday.
For sure. I'd love to come back.
Okay, take care.
Bye bye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Profiles in Leadership. To listen to all my interviews, subscribe to Profiles in Leadership with Steve Anderson on Apple Podcasts, iTunes, and many other popular podcast platforms. Some of these interviews are on video, and you can search YouTube for Profiles in Leadership with Steve Anderson. You can also access the entire library of interviews on my website, orange.coaching.com, and that is orangetheword.coaching.com, and go to the Media Center and click on Podcasts or Video Gallery. You can also enter the website from pilpodcast.com.